Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. If you haven't already, please remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you're not already part of the Quality Shot family, we do watch-alongs for live boxing events. We also do reviews of fights. We do previews. We do news like this, and just some fun little tidbits on top of also doing boxing interviews with former heavyweight champions, former world champions, current champions as well. So do check out our playlist, boxing interviews, if you're interested in boxing interviews with a variety of different fighters from all over the world. Right, let's get into this. Top 10 fights we want to see in 2022. There's a lot of fights, obviously, that are bubbling around, some more realistic than others. I've tried to pick 10 fights that I really want to see, but are also fights that are relatively realistic. So fights, for example, like AJ Fury, they're not really going to happen, let's be honest. So I'm not going to put something like that. So I've tried to pick ones that are a little bit more realistic. But you might question how realistic some of these are, but we'll see. Right, okay, the first one involves Mr. High Tech himself, Lomachenko. Now, at first I was thinking, do I want to see Lomachenko versus Lopez 2? But then I thought Lopez is coming off a loss after obviously losing to George Cambosos Jr. Also, he's complaining about the weight, saying that he needs to move up to 140 as well. So, if that's the case, most likely we won't see that fight. So realistically, we probably won't. And also, I don't know whether it will get made straight away, and whether Lopez has, for example, 2 more fights at 135. I severely doubt it. So I went for what arguably is a more exciting fight in Lomachenko versus Gervonta Davis. Tank Davis, Mr. Mini Mayweather, although doesn't really fight like him, but of course mentored by the self-proclaimed TBE Floyd Mayweather. And Lomachenko, a bit like Isaac Cruz, who gave Tank Davis some issues, to say the least, definitely is a pressure fighter. Now, Isaac Cruz is a lot more crude than Lomachenko. Lomachenko obviously sets more traps. He's more diverse in his fighting, and he's more skilled generally. So I think it would be a really interesting gel of styles, and it's a fight that I would love to see in 2022. Whether we get it or not, considering that there's technically, well, there'd be the WBA regular belt on the line, because we know how much Tank Davis loves a regular belt, but there wouldn't be a senior world title, a proper world title on the line anyways, but it'll still be, I mean, it's a world title worthy fight. Haney Cambosos Jr., that is a cracker. That's one that I want to see. Devin Haney is a really good prospect coming through, and I think we can probably still say he's a prospect. He needs that next level. He needs to rise to that next level. He needs that next level fight. And this would be pretty much the epitome of that. I mean, it's an undisputed fight. It's against someone who's just beaten Lopez. It's someone who's called himself the emperor of the division, and probably rightly so, considering he's got all the belts. It's George Cambosos Jr. from Australia. That fight would probably be in Australia as well. It would be, I mean, I think we all know he's undisputed, but in terms of technically, I think it might be an undisputed fight, given that Devin Haney has a WBC bout. And George Cambosos has somehow got the franchise title, which was only supposed to be a status, according to Mauricio Suleiman, but apparently it is whatever you want it to be. Enough about that, though. Let's not get into that, because that's going to annoy me. But either way, that would be a fantastic fight, so that's what we want to see. For sure, I'd want to see that anyway, and I think it'd be an interesting fight. Cambosos has shown that he's not only a come-forward fighter, but he's got skills to pay the bills. He's obviously fought against, or sparred against, Manny Pacquiao, and some of the combinations he threw against Teofimo Lopez were second to none. Really impressive. Not just the skill, but the wherewithal about him, the speed of hand as well. Really impressive. Then we've got one which is probably the most unrealistic out of all of them, but I wanted to include it because I'm just a hopeful guy at times. And it's Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence, the 147 undisputed clash, which, let's be honest, everyone wants to see. If you're a boxing fan, this is the fight. Before it was AJ Fury, but now we know that's not as realistic. People might say Usyk Fury, but for me, it's definitely Crawford Spence. They've got to make it now. Last year was my second fight that I wanted the most after AJ Fury this year. It is hands down the fight that I need to see. The reason why is because Crawford is starting to get older. We don't want to get to a stage where Crawford is 37, 36, and having to fight Errol Spence, who is a bit younger. Errol Spence also is, I doubt, going to wait around too long at 147. He looks quite big for the weight. Crawford might even move up as well. These guys just need to get it on. They're both now relatively in their prime. Don't wait for it to pass them by. They're not they don't transcend the sport. They're not those types of superstars that a Pacquiao and Mayweather are. So they've got to really cash in. Errol Spence has the the more depth at 147, facing people like Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, who else? Kell Brook in his prime. Taking that belt off him in a really impressive win. He's obviously got other notable wins as well. Crawford doesn't have as much of a deep resume at 147. He's beaten 2 washed-up fighters in Khan and Brook. We can honestly say that because they're towards the back end of their career. But Sean Porter was an impressive win. He's the first guy to stop Sean Porter in the pros, which is really, really impressive. And obviously did something that Spence didn't. How much has that car accident taken out of Spence? Well, against Garcia, didn't look like much. I was slightly edged towards Crawford in that, but that's a breakdown for another video. But it would be an incredible fight. We know that. The build-up would be great as well. I think there is a bit of spice there, and hopefully we see it. Crawford is a free agent. Will we? I don't know. It looks like Spence Ugas next, and if he gets that belt, I'm assuming he's going to ask for 75-25. Which is crazy, and then it won't get made. Right, my fourth fight that I want to see is Fury White. Now, you might say that's definitely going to happen. Well, it should because it's a mandatory, but there's been a dispute about the splits. The WBC have been really cheeky about this. Honestly, I just don't understand. If you put rules in place, you just have to then abide by them. They put him as the WBA interim champion, which would then mean that he is entitled to a 55-45 split with Tyson Fury. If he's just a mandatory, which I think he's both, if I'm not mistaken, he would then be entitled to a 70-30 split. They're actually trying to push for an 80-20 split, Bob Arum. And it's not Bob Arum and Top Rank. You can't just say, oh, it's your fault, because the WBC are the ones that have allowed it. So it's their governing body. They can say no, but they pandered towards it or towards them and said, yeah, let's just get on with it. That's fine. 80-20 is fine. And obviously, Dillian White and Matchroom have come back and said, no, we're entitled to our fair slice of the pie. Look, hopefully it gets resolved. If it doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. But that is a box office fight, and it's a box office build-up because Fury and White can talk for days. They are the type of people that are very, very, very quick in response and retorts. We know what Fury's like with the mind games with Klitschko and others, and Wilder, for example. White, if you've seen him in the build-up to Chisora, to AJ, he doesn't take rubbish. Fury and White would be explosive. It would be a box office presser. Please let me see it, but we shall see. Sticking with the heavyweight theme, I've got Ruiz Parker 2 now, or Parker Ruiz 2, however you want to bill it. This is an interesting one because some people might actually not know that they fought. And if you haven't, then go and check it out because it's one of those maybe unforgotten world title fights. It was a vacant WBO title on the line. And Joseph Parker got the decision against Andy Ruiz. But I tell you what, a lot of people thought Andy Ruiz actually won that fight. It was a very close fight. And I would love to see it again. I would just love to see how each fighter has improved. Have they improved? And also, I just think it would be quite interesting to see they're both at relative crossroads. And I feel like a win over each other, whoever it is, propels them then into world title contention. It's worth noting that actually, talking of the heavyweights, Luis Ortiz and also Joseph Parker have both rejected to fight Hrgovic for an IBF title eliminator. Ducking, I mean, I guess he doesn't bring a lot of money in, but if he said they were ducking, you probably wouldn't be wrong. Talking of Hrgovic, we've got Hrgovic versus Joyce is my other fight. Now, obviously, that would be a replay of an amateur fight where Joyce beat Hrgovic a couple of times, if I'm not mistaken, in the amateurs. Now, Hrgovic seems to be, as I said, the avoided man. No one really wants to fight him. He's got power. He just looks like a lean, mean fighting machine. Some people seem to liken him to Dolph Lundgren from Rocky 4, and he's got that little bit of demeanor about him. He does, I mean, they call him the animal, and he fights like a beast, to be fair. He's very, very talented, but Joyce has this methodical, systematic way of boxing with that big jab, use his size, and it would be a really good clash of styles, I think, as well. Hrgović punches hard, but Joyce has got a good chin, he's got a good jab as well, and he's got a pretty good boxing IQ. That would be a good fight. Hrgović has definitely improved, and he's probably a future world champion, no doubt. But would we see that? I don't know. I doubt it, but it's one on my wish list. Then we go into the light heavyweights, actually, and then the last two will be two women's fights, which I'm really looking forward to happening. I think they probably will happen, to be fair. This will probably happen as well, I'd imagine. I put down Callum Johnson versus Anthony Yarde because I think that's more exciting than Joe Smith Jr. versus Anthony Yarde. Obviously, Joe Smith Jr. and Callum Johnson will go head-to-head for the WBO lightweight title. Just let's assume that Callum Johnson comes through that, although that's a very big if. I would love to see him versus Anthony Yarde. He's a huge puncher, so is Anthony Yarde. It would be explosive, to say the least, and a British fight as well, but for a world title. What a fight that would be. Hopefully we get that. Joe Smith Jr. is not a bad opponent as well to put in with Anthony Yarde. And I would then back Anthony Yarde to actually get his WBO title finally after losing to Kovalev the first time. And who knows? I haven't put it on the list because I think it's unrealistic in 2022, but maybe in 2023 we finally get Buatsi Yarde. If Buatsi gets the title, he wants to go in with someone like Bivol. Let's see how it goes, because I tell you what, they've chucked someone else into the light heavyweight mix, and this is my 8th fight to watch of the year. It's Beterbiev versus Canelo. Canelo looks like he's going to campaign at light heavyweight come this year. He might tinker at cruiserweight, but if you remember, he tinkered at light heavyweight, beat Kovalev, then came back down to super middleweight and then campaigned there and became undisputed. I think he might do a similar thing. He might go up to cruiserweight, try and nick a title, vacate it, and then come back down to, then come down to light heavyweight and try and campaign there. Beterbiev Canelo is, for me, after Crawford Spence, actually the second fight I want to see the most. I just think if it was to happen, it would need to happen now. Beterbiev starting to get old. He's obviously won all his fights by knockout. He is an absolute wrecking ball. And Canelo just seems to have everything. But would the size and power of Beterbiev at light heavyweight be too much? A lot of people might say no. He's not a hugely known quantity because he isn't as glamorous as other fighters and probably as well promoted as he should be. But he is a fantastic fighter, and that would be an incredible fight. So hopefully we see that. I would assume Canelo will go for the other light heavyweight titles first. I think he'd probably stop at Beterbiev last, I would imagine. And then I've got here Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall. What a fight. Obviously, Savannah Marshall, the only fighter to beat Clarissa Shields in the amateurs. I mean, it's a great fight. Savannah Marshall undefeated in the boxing ring, same with Shields, although she did lose her latest UFC fight. I mean, it's incredible she's doing two arts at the same time. In the boxing ring, she has reigned supreme. She is, in a lot of people's eyes, the GOAT, the greatest woman of all time. 2 Olympic gold medals and a lot of world title belts in multiple divisions. She is a superstar. Then we've got the one that I really want to see as well, which is Katie Taylor versus either Baumgardner, so Alicia Baumgardner, who knocked out Terry Harper in clinical fashion, or who do you think? Michaela Meyer. I think Michaela Meyer and Baumgardner need to fight, and if they do, then that will be a great fight to unify and then become undisputed. Then I'd like to see whoever wins that fight go up in weight to fight Katie Taylor, which would be an incredible fight. Especially Baumgardner, because she's got so much power. I think it'd be a really, really good fight. Michaela Meyer and Katie Taylor would be a bit more of like a chess match. I don't know how exciting that might be, but it'll be an intriguing one nonetheless. But it's still definitely a good fight. So those are my 10 fights to watch out for in 2022. Thank you for tuning in. Please do remember to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We really do appreciate your support. We will be doing a lot more boxing content as we have been in 2021. We're going to ramp it up. So do keep an eye out. Of course, no boxing events in the UK in January, but from February onwards, we will have more events. So looking forward to covering those. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and I'll see you on the next